So I started by getting a dark blue dress for a couple dollars from a secondhand shop. It's a little big, but that'll be fixed later. It had kind of a velour texture. It wasn't really velvet, but the velour worked. Then I got a red shirt from the secondhand shop with kind of a cool design, similar to Arwen's. If your shirt has shoulder pads in it like mine did, you'll want to take those out first. Then just try on the shirt. Again, this is very loose, but that'll be fixed later. So I put pins in the front and in the shoulders where I needed the neckline to be, the off-the-shoulder neckline. And then I just cut the shirt following those pin lines, going right up to the shoulder, and then cutting down to meet that line. And then I just folded that over to trace for the other side, even though I had pins in it. I wanted like a perfect match if I could, so cut that down. And then you can cut off a little bit of the back. You don't want to go as far down, otherwise it'll be too big, but go just enough so that it sits properly on the shoulders. You might have to measure a couple times. And then you want to put little cuts every few inches along the collar so you can roll it under and hem it. This will make it easier to roll without the collar getting weird shaped. So here it is after I've hemmed it with the cuts on the back. So the neckline is now fixed. The shirt is still a little baggy, and I want to fix the sleeves and cut it off about a foot below the top of it, and then sew the sleeves in about 1 inch. So I cut the shirt down the back. That'll be for a zipper later on, but I don't want to put that in yet. I cut off the bottom, and then the slit's still in the back there. And then I just sewed a little line about 1.5 inches up from the original seam line, and I just cut off the excess. I cut it up to the original seam line where the sleeves join the actual shirt. Cut it off there without cutting it so it doesn't unravel. And then I just stuck a few clothespins on the back to try it on, since I don't want to put in the zipper yet, because the way the sleeves might change it. So that's the way the shirt looks for now. I laid the shirt out on the blue dress, so I knew where it would have to sit, and then about 3 inches below the top of the red shirt, I put pins in the dress following the shape of the neckline. Again, 3 inches all the way up the neckline there, so I knew where it would have to cut. You can see my little line there. So first thing I did was I cut off the sleeves, and I cut them off on the outside of the seam where the sleeves join the dress. And I just cut the sleeves right off, and then I cut in to the dress following that line of pins, which again is about 3 inches below where the red shirt sits on it. So I just followed that line around, cut just a little bit above the pins so I would have some room to hem. So I'm about 1/2 inch above the pins. And then I just pinned that to the red shirt, rolling the blue under so that the edge will be smooth. You won't see any raw edges then, so roll the blue edges under, pin the whole thing over the outside of the red shirt, and then just sewed it all in place. Once I had it all pinned, just sewed right along all the edges there. And then the back, you can do the same thing to the back as well once you got the front in. I do recommend doing one side at a time. So here it is once I've got it sewn on. One side's a little longer than the other, but oh well. Then I got a red dress from the secondhand shop, same kind of material, not real velvet, but velour. I cut off the top of the dress, so I had just the straight edge part, and I cut those both all the way down the bottom on the side of the dress, so that I ended up with 2 pieces of fairly flat fabric, which gets wider at the bottom, which is good. And then just fold it over and pull the shirt sleeve up to the side of that, up to the folded edge. Put a pin in where the bottom of that sleeve sits, and cut down to that pin. No farther, this is cutting down the fold. And so then my fabric was not big enough to bell out the way Arwen's was, because I was using a dress. So if you have more, you can bell it more, but I did bell what I had a little bit, rounded the edge to give it that bell shape. And it seemed to look pretty much okay. It wasn't quite as belled as Arwen's, but it did seem to look okay. So I did that to both of those. And then I got some red satin from, sadly, my last trip to JoAnn Fabrics. And I traced around one of the velvety pieces, and I laid it satin side up, velvety side down, and then just sewed all the way around the outside edge, leaving the top open, so just the outside edge. And then you can just flip it right side out, just like that, and then fold it satin side up, and you're going to sew along the top edge through both those pieces, both the satin and the velvety, right along the top edge to make a sleeve. So here it is once I've sewn mine. And then that makes the little sleeve. Flip it right side out. And that makes the Arwen sleeve. That little slit that's on the side, that ends up being a hole then, and that's where that will attach to the sleeves of the red shirt. So going back to the red shirt, I put a pin where the top side of my arm is, so I knew that the sleeves would dangle properly, because the seams of the shirt don't always line up with where your arm sits, so definitely measure that. So then you want to take the shirt, the big sleeve, turn it inside out, satin side up, and slide it over the sleeve of the shirt. The open side goes in the dress, and then the little hole points outwards so that you're going to be sewing the little hole to the end of the sleeve, just like that. So when you unfold it, it will face the proper direction with the velvet side out, but when you're sewing it, satin side out, and the hole gets sewn to the end of the sleeve hole, just like that. And then you can unfold it, and you have your lovely little Arwen sleeves with the satin on the inside. So here's what the sleeves look like. That nice satin on the inside and the velvety texture on the outside. So this is when I decided to put in the zipper. I wanted to put the sleeves on first to make sure that it wouldn't throw it off with the weight of the sleeves because they're quite heavy. So I laid the zipper out on the back and I cut down the back of the dress to where the length of the zipper. So I folded the edge of the fabric and sewed it to the zipper. The zipper shows up as white, but I didn't have a blue one, so I just used the white one that I had. For the trim, I couldn't find any gold, so I got this white trim that I liked, and then I just painted it gold to get the look. And so cut a piece big enough to go around the sleeve. You'll cover where the two pieces of sleeve join, so the top and the bottom. And then cut a piece with angled edges, and that will go where the blue points go, right around the shoulder, meeting the blue point in the back. And then you'll do a piece for the collar, but it needs to be a little thinner because there needs to be a little bit of red space between the blue and the gold, so I just cut off the bottom of it, right about where that bottom line was, kind of following the scalloped edges there. And that one also has pointed edges, but they face the other way. Now you do need to make a few cuts in it. About every few inches, make just a tiny little cut that will allow it to bend around the collar because straight ribbon doesn't bend. But this way you can just overlap the edges so it'll bend around the collar. And again, so the top and bottom piece of that ribbon. Because of the weird edges on all of these, I found it much easier to sew them together by hand. So again, I just did the top and the bottom. And so here it is once I had all the pieces of gold trim sewn onto the collar and the shoulders and where the sleeves join. On the back side, the collar piece had to be split to go around the zipper, so it doesn't quite reach to the zipper, but I'll live with it. So there's what the trim looks like on the dress. And here was the dress with my regular hair when it was done, and then I just pulled my wig that I used for several other costumes, Wonder Woman, Princess Leia, and I put that on to be the Arwen hair. And this dress is really fun to play with those big sleeves.